JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. March 20th, 2025, 9 a.m. Apologize, had some audio issues, so took a couple minutes. Talk quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P futures pointing to a lower open, solidly green in the after hours session yesterday, overnight, all the way to this morning about 4 o'clock. We were hitting highs almost up near that 570, and then just a meltdown, like nonstop, all the way to about 6:30. You look around and some headlines are saying, "Oh, they're just selling, reversing the Fed gains from yesterday," but there was no news or catalyst. But you take a look in the Europe markets, which have been on fire, especially Germany, after they announced a historic funding. Right, they're going to tap into debt to fund their defense sector and things like that. But it looks like the honeymoon is over. Those stocks had opened green, reversed. The DAX was down almost 2% at times. I think that's some of it. Yeah, just it's probably going to be a choppy environment for the foreseeable future. We did have weekly jobless claims come out this morning, higher than expectations. I don't think that's the pull here, but some of the worst days, or at least the most frustrating, are these are reversal days after a Fed day. And there's been times I'd have to go back to find what days they are where we have a great Fed day on Wednesday, and then the next day we just reverse course. I'm hoping today's not the case. 563, we're down here at 563.86. Just want to see that hold today. Would be nice. Yesterday with the Fed, I thought it was a great Fed meeting. Fed Chair Powell was able to kind of like alleviate concerns, or at least it seems like everybody's nerves are rattled by what's going on, and I think he was able to kind of like settle things down and not be panicked, right? And he talked about the soft data, the surveys that a lot of people were citing for worry, the consumer confidence, things like that. And he's saying, oh, he wants to see the hard data stuff. And it wasn't like he was dismissing the uh, possible inflation worries with tariffs or slow down the economy. So think he did a good job with that. It's just the only certainty that came out of that Fed meeting and statement and presser yesterday was that there's going to be continued uncertainty, right? So markets don't like uncertainty. We'll see how things play out here, but it just feels like we're going to be choppy for the foreseeable future. 563 here, then we get to 552 on a SPY. That'd be another spot. That'd be a huge spot. And then you worry about 540. So, I remain cautiously optimistic, but I'm open to both sides. I was saying it yesterday on the rant yesterday afternoon. If there's a silver lining for a bear, or at least for if you for playing it for downside is that yesterday's bump helped take out some of the huge premiums on the puts. So the put hedges became a heck of a lot less expensive. I'll be watching at the open. I'm not going to jump to puts at the open, but if the 563 doesn't hold and it looks like we're going to have continuation, maybe I'll look to get some in the typical names I've been adding. The JP Morgan's, Goldman Spectacular. Visa, MasterCard have been rocks and likely continue. But if the market does roll, at some point you have to think those names will succumb to pressure. All right, so that's kind of the overall market there. I try to always keep a silver lining, right? So the first of the 200-day moving average, which came close to on Monday, came close to yesterday, seems like strong resistance. So if we can somehow get a reversal here today and tomorrow, if that breaks, I think there's substantial upside on that break. And then always Ryan Dietrich always posts some good stuff on FinTwit. And a lot of it's like bullish skewed, right? So you always take things with a grain of salt because the market over history, right? It's going to be higher. It's been higher 10 years on, right? It's always higher, right? February 19th, we're at all-time highs. So take a look at the historicals here, at least over the last 19 years of performance, or the past 20 years, the market's performance by month, right? So that red mark is kind of like we are here. And then you can see we're heading into a historically somewhat bullish time frame. Doesn't mean that we're definitely going to rally, but some positive things are always good to have after the market is pulled back. All right, so that's overall market, and then the VIX was down 9% again yesterday. So, and you take a look, you wouldn't even know that we were at these levels right now in the market. All right, so individual names I talked about in the rant yesterday afternoon. So DELL, I was looking at a possible sympathy name after on the GTC conference. It was churning around 97 or so. Once it started to break 98, I went and got some spec lotto calls within 20 minutes. I was able to close some out for 100% to cover costs. I held the rest all the way up to $100.40 after the Fed, during the Fed Powell's press conference. Unfortunately, the premiums, when it was 98 and change early in the day were higher than when it was $100, over 100 later in the day. Hopefully get another chance to rally. I think if the market finds some footing, it trades possibly 105. You start looking at gap fills. 108.75 is the gap from late February. Not saying it gets there this week, but if the market holds its ground here, I might look for some calls into next week as well. I'll use like 97.25 or so as a possible stop, but who knows what the calls are going to look like. And I want to be a spot where I close those calls out and or salvage them, and then just to see the market reverse. So I'll probably just hold on to those. Same thing with Shopify. It was rallying yesterday, trying to find some news. Looks like there was a filing they were going to relist on the NASDAQ. And also, it looks like it's oversold condition. So I think a combination of both of those, the stock was soaring. It was up over 10% at times, closed up 8%, was over 103, 104 in the pre-market session. And then we had that reversal. So unfortunately, it's back under $100 here. Still optimistic. Obviously, going to need a much larger move here today, but it had a huge move yesterday. If the market reversed, I think there'd be some continuation there. And then, XYZ, I was staring at it all day yesterday. I was actually almost pulled the trigger on 64 spec calls. My 60 calls I closed out on Monday. Those are up over 400% at times. Can't cry over spilled milk, right? It was part of the plan. I didn't want to be a spot where I lost profits on it, so I closed those out and had other positions anyway. So if the market reverses here today, another name I could look for some spec calls, possibly. And where is it? I didn't even pull where it is here in the pre-market. It was over 62, but it's under 61. So in hindsight, maybe I would have held the calls in today and lost some of the profits. But either way, definitely a name I'll continue to watch. I mean, take a look at that squeeze and move. I think it's 5 days to the road to the upside. And then on the flip side here, Intel just disappointing, just down almost 7% yesterday. No big news or catalyst, so though some are saying the GCC conference was somewhat negative Intel. Some of it's just a function of that big rally. The stock is still green on the week, despite the near 7% drop yesterday. And you take a look, still at above its 2060 levels from last week, pre new CEO announcement. So not going to add any more strikes here. I'll continue to hold the April calls, which taken on the chin. But saw it before, saw it last week when I had the strikes. Those were solidly red, came back to life over 100%. Hopefully, you get some deja vu here. And then Baidu, disappointing. I was actually looking to add some more strikes on weakness yesterday. I didn't want to catch a falling knife. And then continuation here today, Asian markets were down overnight, and you had PDD earnings this morning, somewhat disappointing. 95.75 is the key spot. So I think it's under that. It was just under that before when I was looking. It's down under $95. We'll have to see if we can find some footing. If it does, maybe I'll look for some later dated strikes as well. And then other things of note, when we had the bounces yesterday, some names bounced more than others. And, of course, some of the oversold momentum names, the AppLovins, the Reddits, Carvana. Then you take a look at Restoration Hardware, and it sold off from its afternoon highs, but that's definitely a name. You start looking at its, I don't know if I want to call it a base just yet, but if it can bounce off this level here, I mean, maybe it heads up to 260, 280. Again, I think some of this is the tariff concern, so I don't know if that's all of it, but yeah. So that's it, folks. I'll be back on audio later. Let's have a great day. Rock and roll.